Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. What if the ghost that's been haunting you your entire life was actually you? The Haunting of Hill House isn't just another horror series. It's the cream of the crop when it comes to delivering devastating plot twists in television history. If you're ready to revisit one of the most brilliant horror series ever made, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss your favorite shows. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's step back into Hill House. The first episode focuses on Olivia Crain, author of The Haunting of Hill House. When he was young, their family lived in Hill House during its renovation. As the eldest son, Stephen wakes up to young Nell's crying, who's terrified of the bent-neck lady. Their father, Hugh, sends Stephen back and comforts Nell, promising they'll leave once the house is fixed and sold. Soon, Hugh closes their door and checks on his eldest daughter, Shirley, who's sleep-talking. When he comes out, the door to Nell and Luke's room is ajar. Seeing them asleep, Hugh closes their door and checks if it's broken. Once he's gone, the door creaks open again, waking Nell up. She calls for Luke, but he's asleep. While trying to sleep, the bent-neck lady appears. At present, Stephen records Irene's haunting story. As they talk, Stephen admits that he has never actually seen a ghost. In the past, the caretaker, Mr. Dudley, gives Shirley a master key. When Shirley and Nell try it on in the Red Room, it still won't open. As they leave, a shadow moves behind the door. At present, Shirley grows concerned when Nell leaves a voicemail about Luke. Nell doesn't answer Shirley's return call, so Shirley calls Stephen instead and learns Luke is doing well. At night, Theo, who lives within Shirley's property, visits her. Talking about their siblings, Theo shrugs off concerns about Luke, assuming he'll show up when he needs money. Late that night, Hugh sleeps when a hand touches him from behind. Turning, a woman screams at him. Startled awake, he receives a frantic call from Nell, who says the bent-neck lady has returned. Hugh tells her to go to Stephen's place, promising to see her soon. Nell apologizes for waking him, saying she loves him. The call ends, and the scene pans out to reveal she's outside Hill House. Though abandoned, it is all lit up. The story flashes to the night the family flees the house. Hugh wakes the children and rushes them out, making Stephen promise to keep his eyes closed. Once in the car, Hugh drives away with the kids, leaving his wife Olivia behind. When asked where their mother is, Hugh tells them that what they left behind isn't their mom. At present, Nell dances within the dark Hill House. Soon, every Crane sibling wakes up simultaneously as if they're choked awake. Shirley instinctively knows Nell is in the Red Room. Later, Stephen returns to his apartment and finds Luke stealing from him. Stephen pays him just so Luke would return his iPad. When he gets inside, Nell's just standing there. Stephen complains to her, but she barely responds. When he receives a call from their father, he learns that Nell went back to Hill House and she's dead. Stephen looks back and sees Nell flash before him. After staring for a while, Stephen falls on his back and Nell vanishes. The second episode focuses on Shirley, who presently works as a funeral director. In the past, Shirley finds her mother, Olivia, designing their forever house. Nell arrives, inviting them to play with her tea party. With Olivia busy, Shirley plays with Nell outside instead. Before leaving, Olivia reminds them that when the porch light flashes twice, they must return home. Outside, Shirley sends Nell to Theo and takes pictures of them. Seeing Luke, she reminds him of the rule. Once Shirley's gone, Luke notices a girl standing nearby and waves at her. Still outside, Hugh and Mr. Dudley discuss the locked Red Room. Wandering around, Shirley discovers a litter of abandoned kittens. When she screams after seeing a distorted face, Hugh and Mr. Dudley rush over and assure her it's only a wasp nest. Shirley worries that the dogs she keeps hearing at night will harm the kittens, but Mr. Dudley insists there are no dogs on the grounds. At present, Shirley argues with her husband and business partner, Kevin, who warns her that offering funerals at lower cost hurts their finances. When their conversation gets interrupted, Kevin takes care of the grieving client. With them gone, Shirley sees a man on the couch. After shaking the image away, Shirley soon discovers Kevin's secret bank account. Later, she confides in Theo, who urges her to confront Kevin directly. At nighttime, Shirley relives the time she and Theo heard violent banging on the walls. At their screams, Hugh rushes to them. Insisting he heard nothing, Hugh's face suddenly shifts, and Shirley wakes up to the present. She then receives a call from Stephen telling her Nell is dead. Shirley refuses to believe it, but Stephen says it's true. Getting up, she visits Theo. Grief pulls Shirley back to the memory of the kittens. She remembers finding one dead, then later discovers all of them gone. In the present, Shirley insists on handling Nell's funeral service herself despite Theo and Kevin's protests. When Nell arrives, Shirley begins the preparation alone. While fixing Nell, Shirley's children wander in, and she stops working to answer their questions. To keep them busy, she asks them to choose a favorite photo of Nell for the service. Getting back to work, she puts mortuary makeup on Nell and the memory of Nell's wedding surfaces. While working on Nell's wedding makeup, Shirley spots Luke, clearly struggling, and forces him to leave by giving him money. When she returns to Nell's side, Shirley pretends it's nothing, and Nell never knew her twin was there. Back in the prep room, Shirley breaks down in front of Nell's body, apologizing. For a moment, she sees an insect crawling from Nell's mouth, but it vanishes. Another flashback shows her mother's funeral. Seeing Olivia in an open casket deeply unsettled Shirley. It was only through the funeral director's guidance that she got through it. Returning to the present, Shirley finishes fixing Nell. She is about to leave when she sees Olivia. At the sound of a cat's cry, she reopens the light and Olivia disappears. Later, she closes for the night, not noticing that the porch light on the Forever House model flashes twice. The third episode focuses on the middle child, Theodora. Back at the Hill House, Theo wakes up to someone slipping into her bed and embracing her. Assuming it's Nell, Theo complains she's squeezing too tightly. When Theo turns, no one is there. At present, Theo works as a child psychologist. After a session with one kid, Theo spots a copy of Stephen's book, triggering a memory of an argument from years before. Stephen offered them a cut of the profits from the novel about their horrifying history. Shirley refuses outright, calling it blood money. The others agree with her. However, Theo later meets up with Stephen and his wife and takes the money. She then uses it to get her PhD. At present, Theo does some work at home and later tries to sleep. Another childhood memory intrudes. It is back when Theo finds Luke sneaking into the dumbwaiter. He begs her to help him ride it. She agrees, pressing the up button, but they panic when Luke descends out of sight. Luke screams, claiming something disfigured lunges at him. Hugh and Olivia rush in to pull Luke out while sending Theo to bed. Theo wakes from the memory to her blanket slowly sliding off the bed. At the foot of the bed, she sees a disfigured being. Jolted awake, Theo brushes it off. It is on that night that Shirley knocks, telling her about Nell's death. A flashback to Nell's wedding shows the family discovering Theo with a bridesmaid. The moment is awkward, but it ends with acceptance. Back in the present, Theo and Shirley talk about Nell's death. Shirley struggles with how to explain it to her children. Theo insists Shirley tells the truth and admits she's angry at Nell for going back to that house. Following Nell's arrival, Theo leaves for work. A flashback follows, revealing how Theo figured out the location of the basement in Hill House. Theo talks to Olivia about what she found there, but when her mother touches her, Theo sees Olivia in a horrid state. Later, Olivia talks to Theo about her sensitivity. Olivia admits she gets them too, and that it runs in the family. She then gifts Theo with gloves, telling her she can always talk to her. At present, Theo visits Nell and touches her. Stunned by what she discovers, Theo cries out loud. That night, Theo drinks and sees Kevin. She tells him that Shirley found his bank account and tells him to lie about a second family instead of the truth. Theo then leaves to meet with her casual hookup Trish, who just arrived. A memory of that night flashes. Hugh pulls Luke and Nell, instructing Theo to get into the car and lock the doors until he returns. As he pulls her, Theo sees a vision of a woman, the tea party, a girl, a rotting body, and what happened to their mother. Theo then screams out loud to be let go. In episode 4, the focus shifts to Luke. In rehab, Luke listens as another addict shares years of regret. 3 months later, Luke stands before the same group, receiving his 90-day chip for being clean. In the past, a young Luke shows a drawing of the creature he saw in the basement. Hugh reassures him there's nothing there. Olivia joins them, calling out to Nell. She gives Nell old buttons while Luke takes a bowler hat. Once he and Nell run off to play, Olivia grabs an old shawl. She shares her vision of what Hill House looked like before with Hugh. At present, Luke confides in Joey, another resident. He admits how his addiction has hurt everyone he loves. Their counselor, Paige, appears, informing Stephen called. But Luke assumes his brother wouldn't believe his progress. That night, Luke jolts awake as if choked. Before him, he sees Nell telling him to go. In a memory, he and Nell play with a strange communication device. Nell drops buttons through it, but Luke only receives 2 instead of 3. When Nell appears, the third button finally drops, and a voice calls out to Mr. Dudley's wife, Clara. Luke heads upstairs, confirming no one's there. But through the device's reflection, he sees the ghost of Hazel Hill. At present, Luke wakes up with an aching neck and finds Joey gone. He discovers a note telling him not to follow, but he leaves anyway. Luke calls Nell, reaches voicemail, and asks about the twin thing moment he got. Soon, he searches for Joey, repeatedly spotting a tall figure with a bowler hat from a distance. In a flashback, Luke wakes up to dogs howling outside. Everything suddenly goes quiet, and a tapping sound outside makes him get up. Seeing a tall, floating figure with a cane, Luke hides under his bed. The figure then enters their room and takes the bowler hat. It is about to leave, but then it hears Luke. Floating back, it reaches under the bed and looks at Luke, who screams in fear. At present, Luke finds Joey and convinces her to return, but their beds at rehab are gone. He promises to find a place for them to stay, even as the tall figure continues to stalk him. They go to Stephen's home, only to learn that Stephen and Lee have separated. Tracking down Stephen's apartment, Luke takes some items to sell and runs into Stephen, who assumes the worst. Luke later rejoins Joey, but Joey disappears again, only this time with the money. Alone, Luke wanders and gets mugged. Desperate, he calls Paige, begging her to let him return. As it happens, Stephen is there. In another memory, Luke wakes up to Nell's crying because of the bent neck lady. Luke teaches her a trick to count to 7 because there are 7 in the family. He explains that counting out loud helps keep her safe, and sometimes she just has to repeat it numerously. At present, Luke counts as he walks. Feeling the tall man's presence following, he continues counting. When he stops at 3, the tall man stops just behind him. Turning back, Luke finds Olivia in the tall man's clothes, telling him to come home. When Stephen and Paige finally arrive to pick him up, Luke breaks down. He insists he didn't use, but he's really cold, as if he's in withdrawal. Stephen cuts him off with the truth that Nell is dead. When Stephen says she made the choice, Luke pauses, saying it wasn't. The 5th episode finally focuses on Nell. On their first night in Hill House, young Eleanor screams after seeing the bent neck lady. Hugh and Olivia rush in, insisting it's just a nightmare. The next night, Nell insists on sleeping elsewhere, while Olivia stays with her. When Nell asks about Olivia's locket that has the twins' photos inside, Olivia promises that Nell can have it one day. For now, she lets Nell borrow it for the night. After Nell falls asleep, Olivia leaves. But the bent neck lady returns, hovering over Nell, whispering, "No, no, no." Years later, Nell visits a sleep clinic where she meets Arthur Vance. He explains her visions as sleep paralysis and dream spillover. Nell is skeptical but comforted, and the two quickly grow close. They date, fall in love, and Arthur eventually proposes. At their wedding, Nell briefly sees Olivia behind Hugh. However, months later, Nell's sleep paralysis returns. While turning on the light, Arthur collapses and dies instantly. At that moment, Nell sees the shadow of the bent neck lady. She later tells her therapist the story, convinced the apparition caused Arthur's death. But the therapist reminds her it was a brain aneurysm, a childhood memory of Nell finding a tea-set surface. While cleaning it, Olivia explodes over a writing on the wall. Theo insists Nell didn't do it. When the wallpaper is pulled back, the words tell Nell to come home. As adults, Nell drives Luke to rehab. On the way, he asks for one last shot, and she reluctantly agrees. While Luke does his thing, she sees the bent neck lady again. A month later, Nell tells her therapist how she drove her brother to rehab. When asked how Luke's doing, Nell admits she never called, but she can tell Luke feels better through their twin thing. However, Nell soon struggles after stopping her medication. She argues with Theo and even publicly confronts Stephen during his book talk. The story returns to the night the family flees. Hugh drops the children off at a motel and returns for Olivia. Luke tells the others how he and Nell were in the Red Room with their mother and Abigail, but Nell says that wasn't their mom. Hugh returns the next morning and finds Nell awake. Shaken and stained, he says their mother is okay now. When the police arrive, Hugh gives her a pocket watch, reminding her that their Aunt Janet will get them. In the present, Nell returns to that same motel. She wakes up paralyzed to a vision of Luke. Later that day, she calls Stephen and Shirley, but neither answers. She then leaves her room to get water and encounters the bent neck lady again. After missing a call from Stephen, assuring her that Luke's fine, Nell decides it's time to go. Arriving at Hill House, lights glow from within, and the porch light flashes twice. Inside, the house looks alive, and Nell sees her family. Olivia welcomes her, saying she's expected. Seeing everyone she loves there, it was like the night of her wedding. Nell dances with Arthur, feeling whole again. Once done, she sees Abigail. Olivia reappears, calling Nell for a tea party. Following her mother, Luke, and Abigail, Nell climbs the spiral staircase. Once there, Olivia places the locket around her neck. However, the locket tightens into a noose and she's standing dangerously. Olivia kisses her and says it's time to wake up. As Nell falls, time fractures, and she relives every moment she ever saw the bent neck lady. Only this time, it's from the lady's perspective. Back to the very first night, Nell screams, understanding the horror that she has always been the bent neck lady. If you're enjoying this recap, show some love with a like and drop a comment telling us what you'd like to see next. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching. Now let's continue with the second half. Stephen and Luke shortly arrive, but it takes some time for Luke to look at his twin. Once he and Stephen do, Stephen breaks down. He moves away to drink and sees the ghost of their mother standing nearby. Dismissing it, the siblings talk about Nell's death, and their father arrives. For Hugh, his children are still like the kids they were. However, talking to them is awkward. He's unable to find the right words. Hugh suddenly talks softly to the side, as if talking to someone else. Hugh soon looks at Nell, seeing her like the child she once was. He compliments Shirley for her work and heads to the bathroom. As he walks, he's transported back to Hill House on the night of the storm. The loud crash sends a younger Hugh rushing downstairs to a fallen chandelier. Olivia appears moments later. When asked where she's been, she says she was just wandering. Soon, the kids also appear. As they move the chandelier, the storm outside intensifies. Hail pounds the roof and Shirley's window shatters upstairs. Hugh and Stephen head up to investigate, while the rest remain downstairs. The power suddenly cuts out, plunging the house into darkness. Nell wanders off, only to see the bent neck lady. Olivia comforts her, and then tasks Theo to hold Nell's hand while they get the flashlights. However, Nell suddenly disappears. At the funeral home, the family reminisces about Nell. However, the mood quickly sours when Stephen demands to know what happened. Hugh tells them how Mrs. Dudley saw Nell at the old house. On the day it happened, they discover that Nell only talked to Hugh and that the bent-neck lady was back. As old resentments resurface, their voices escalate. It turns out that both Theo and Kevin accepted money from Stephen. Humiliated and angry, Shirley sends the two away and checks on Nell, only to discover buttons placed on Nell's eyes. Then, the power cuts off. Everyone moves to fix it and get candles while Hugh stays behind. Hearing Nell sob as she calls to him, Hugh looks up and sees the bent-neck lady. Sighing, he goes after her. Back in the past, Hugh and Olivia search for Nell. Alone, Olivia opens a door and briefly sees a ghostly boy in a wheelchair. When Hugh spots Olivia again, she keeps slipping away. Windows begin exploding around the house, and Hugh sees Olivia standing before the massive window. He turns away to shield himself, but when he looks back, the window is intact and Olivia is gone. He finally finds her sitting in the hallway, saying she was having the strangest dream. Suddenly, the children scream. Hugh and Olivia race downstairs. The kids insist on seeing a huge dog. Hugh moves toward the kitchen to check, but his flashlight flickers. Then he spots Nell. In the present, Luke is resolute that Nell didn't do that to herself. Soon, the argument between Stephen and Hugh boils over. Suddenly, the casket crashes to the floor and the power returns. They fix the casket upright while Shirley looks for mortuary makeup. Heading into the storage room, Shirley finds Kevin and Theo. Kevin tries to explain, but Shirley walks away. In one room, she sees the man again. Back in Hill House, the family finally finds Nell. She sobs, saying she's been calling for them the whole time, but no one could see her. Luke then promises he will never leave her alone. In the present, Luke turns away from Nell's casket. And just like before, no one can see that Nell is there the entire time. The 7th episode focuses on Hugh. It's a few hours before Nell's funeral service, and Hugh prepares, talking on his own. At Shirley's place, her anger spills onto everyone. Nearby, Olivia stands. Whether she's a ghost or a product of his grief, she feels real to him. Hugh steps away and finds Theo instead. The two talk about Luke, and Theo admits she made a mistake. Returning to Hill House just after the storm, Hugh, Stephen, and Mr. Dudley check the damage left behind. Stephen notices a wall that feels wrong. Hugh inspects it and discovers there are walls with severe mold and moisture spreading inside. When Stephen tells Olivia, they realize that it'll take more time to fix the house, trapping them there financially. At present, the funeral service begins. Though strained and uncomfortable, Shirley and Luke say a few words. In the past, Hugh and Stephen proceed with the repairs. Olivia arrives with blueprints, indicating where the pipes are. When Hugh looks at the plans, he's disturbed. Mr. Dudley later warns Hugh that the house changes people, explaining how it slowly destroyed his wife, Clara's mind. That's why the Dudleys never stay after dark. Later, an accident occurs during repair. Furious, Hugh tries to force the Red Room door open, but it won't budge. At Nell's gravesite, the family throws soil on her casket. When it's Luke's turn, he looks up and finds Nell, while his mother is in the hole and pulls him to return home. Startled, Luke can't shake free. Stephen sees him struggling and forcefully pulls Luke away, firmly insisting none of it is real. One night in the past, Hugh wakes to find Olivia pressing a screwdriver to his throat. He snaps her awake and disarms her, but she doesn't remember how it happened. When Hugh shows her the blueprint she drew that has the outline of their forever house repeatedly drawn on it, Olivia swears they aren't hers. Hugh gently urges her to leave the house for a while, and she agrees. Later, Hugh tears into the walls again and finds something far worse. The authorities identify the skeleton as William Hill, missing since 1948. Based on the investigation, he bricked himself in and desperately tried to claw his way out. In the present, the service just ended. However, Shirley can't find her wallet and Theo's Jeep is gone. Realizing that Luke probably took them, Shirley and Stephen leave, while Theo sees a dirt trail into Shirley's office. Hugh and Theo investigate, finding Shirley's cherished forever house model smashed on the floor. Just then, Olivia crawls toward them, and Hugh quickly pulls Theo back. Hearing the screams, Shirley finds them distraught and the forever house model destroyed. Overwhelmed, Hugh claims he'll fix it. Returning to the past, Hugh is in the police station. Officer Beckley asks about what happened between the 3 hours after the incident and before Hugh called the authorities. Hugh replies that he was grieving. Hugh explains that before the incident, he thought Olivia was with her sister. But when Shirley woke him up after seeing Olivia in the kitchen, Hugh ran up to the Red Room. In his official statement, he claimed the room was locked, but in reality, he saw the door open that night. Episode 8 begins with a flashback of Stephen and Lee in a doctor's office, listening as their options for having a child are laid out. However, Stephen is distracted by a shadowy figure beyond the glass. At present, Shirley is on a call to get alerted when her card gets used. After the call, Stephen decides to look for Luke. Claiming to protect the others, Hugh doesn't mention what they saw in Shirley's office and accompanies Stephen. In the past, Hugh continues with the repairs, assigning Stephen to take care of his siblings once Olivia takes a break. As Stephen goes upstairs, he encounters the people his father hired for the repairs. There is even one who's fixing the clock. When he finds Olivia talking to herself, Stephen can tell she's off. Now that he isn't busy, Stephen plays video games and discovers an old vanity dresser. After showing it to Mrs. Dudley, Stephen learns it belonged to the clinically insane Poppy Hill, the wife of William Hill. He decides to repaint it, ignoring the black molds. Once done, he gives it to Olivia, but she suddenly loses herself and destroys the mirror. At present, Hugh and Stephen search for Luke while discussing marriage and children. However, Stephen reveals that he had a vasectomy. They also talk of their family and how Stephen read the police report about what happened. Stephen claims their mom was mentally ill, yet their dad wasn't there for her. At Shirley's place, her family leaves for trick-or-treating. Left alone, she gets repeatedly disturbed by the doorbell despite the closed porch lights. But whenever she checks, there's no one there. She also sees the same man she repeatedly sees. When the doorbell rings turns into knocking, Shirley angrily goes out yelling. Nearby, Theo walks over to apologize. Seeing no one else there, they return to the house. Theo tries to explain what happened, but they end up arguing. When Shirley pulls Theo to the door, the knocking resumes, but like before, there's no one there. The pounding resumes, only this time it intensifies, as if a repeat of what they experienced when they were young. Once it stops, Shirley's phone rings. Later, Shirley calls Stephen, telling him they got a hit in a gas station that's on the way to Hill House. Heading to the gas station, Hugh learns Luke bought extra gasoline canisters. He immediately insists on driving, certain that Luke plans to burn down the house. As they drive, Hugh fears Hill House will defend itself when threatened. Finally breaking his silence, Hugh explains the house feeds on people, and their family is its unfinished meal. It's the most dangerous place for them, especially Stephen. Hugh reminds Stephen of details from his own book, saying the man Stephen remembers working on the clock was never hired. The treehouse that Stephen swears existed was never built. They were only meant to stay 8 weeks, and there's no time to build one for them. On another road, Shirley and Theo drive toward Hill House. The two continue arguing, with Theo telling what they saw in Shirley's office and what happened in the storage room. But Shirley dismisses it, so Theo reveals that she touched Nell. However, the argument spirals until Nell's sudden scream stops them. The car swerves violently before grinding to a halt. Theo collapses outside the car, sobbing. She confesses that she felt nothing when she touched Nell's body, and ever since, she can't feel anything. During the storm, with the lights out, Theo couldn't see or feel anything. When the power returned and she saw someone, she acted just to feel something, anything. It's not because she wanted Kevin, and even Kevin pushed her. However, Theo felt shame was better than emptiness. Shaken, Shirley gently helps Theo up. Meanwhile, Luke arrives alone at Hill House. The lights turn on as if the house is welcoming him. Inside, he pours gasoline everywhere and counts to 7. Lighting it up, flames roar to life, but they instantly die out. Olivia then appears, but before Luke can react, Poppy Hill grabs him from behind. The 9th episode finally centers on Olivia Crain. The morning after the storm, Olivia finds Clara cleaning. They talk, and Olivia opens up about her childhood. As the day goes on, her migraines worsen. She wanders into a room that shouldn't exist yet and is hit with a devastating vision of Nell and Luke as adults. Soon after, Olivia begins seeing Poppy Hill. Their first conversations feel casual. Poppy speaks fondly of Olivia's reading room, its past, and mentions her own child. She listens as Olivia confesses her fear of losing her children. Poppy reframes these visions as screaming memes, terrible dreams that feel real but aren't. She explains that sometimes the only way to save children from bad dreams is to wake them up. Suddenly, Olivia snaps out of the vision, only to find herself holding a screwdriver to Hugh's throat. Horrified, she insists she doesn't remember how she got there. Hugh, shaken and scared for her safety, decides Olivia needs to leave Hill House immediately and rest. As Olivia's condition worsens, she drifts into the twins' room. Luke and Nell ask if she can wake them from a nightmare worse than the bent neck lady, describing their bleak futures as adults. As she responds, Stephen's voice pulls Olivia back to reality. Later, Olivia talks again with Clara, who gently urges her to trust her instincts, but also warns that the house is strange and hungry. Clara admits that's why she never lets her child step inside, and why they never stay after dark. Soon, Stephen gifts Olivia a vanity dresser, hoping to lift her spirits. Instead, Olivia sees visions of Nell and Luke dead in the mirror and smashes it in panic. Due to her worsening condition, they moved her departure up to the next morning. Olivia says goodbye and gets into a cab, but instead of going to the airport, she checks into a motel. That night, she returns to Hill House and finds Hugh asleep. Shirley later sees Olivia acting strangely in the kitchen. Later, Olivia leads Nell, Luke, and Abigail into the Red Room for a surprise tea party. She pours tea laced with rat poison. Abigail drinks first and immediately collapses. Hugh, alerted by Shirley, finds the poison and races through the house. He reaches the Red Room just in time to save Nell and Luke, knocking Olivia unconscious in the chaos. As Hugh evacuates the children, Olivia regains consciousness, finds Abigail dead, and wanders the house in a fractured state. Poppy convinces her that Hugh is taking the children away from Olivia. Then Hazel Hill appears, warning that Poppy is lying. Suddenly, Hugh rushes out with Stephen, and making it out, he drives the children away from the house. Poppy then talks fast behind her, claiming Hugh is driving them to the dark. Overwhelmed, she shouts for Poppy to shut up, and Poppy disappears. Olivia walks to the Red Room and sobs at Abigail's death. Suddenly, she sees Abigail perfectly fine. Believing everything is a dream, Olivia reaches the spiral staircase. Poppy assures Olivia that waking up will reunite her with her children. Desperate, Olivia steps over and falls. Later, the scene flashes to the first day the family arrived in Hill House, JA. The final episode begins with Shirley and Nell trying to open the Red Room. On the other side, Theo is in her dancing studio, bothered by the rattling doorknob and banging. In the present, Stephen struggles to write a sequel to The Haunting of Hill House, while Lee, now pregnant, listens. As he writes, the story slips back to the night he and Hugh return to Hill House, smelling gasoline. Stephen spots the tall man with the bowler hat, and Hugh stops him from going further when they find Abigail. The tall man enters the room, and Hugh tells Stephen to keep his eyes on him until the ghost finally leaves. They climb the stairs and reach the Red Room. While Hugh searches for a way in, the door opens on its own. Stephen sees Luke and rushes inside. The door slams shut behind him, locking Hugh out. Stephen snaps out of his writing trance, realizing he can't remember what happens next. Furious, Lee shifts. Suddenly, Nell touches him, waking him fully inside the Red Room with his siblings. Seeing Luke's state, Stephen desperately tries to save him. Meanwhile, Luke slips into a vision of Joey, who tempts him with one last shot. When he refuses, her eyes melt away, and Luke jolts back to reality as Stephen calls his name. Once the door closes, Poppy makes Stephen dream. Outside, Hugh pounds on the door until mold overtakes him, and he collapses. Downstairs, Shirley and Theo arrive. Shirley becomes trapped in a vision of her infidelity and her own funeral, until Nell appears and wakes her. Theo, meanwhile, dreams of a life without her sensitivity and is happy with Trish. But when the dream turns grotesque, Nell reaches out to her, and Theo wakes up. However, Luke becomes unresponsive. In a softer version of the Red Room, Luke sees Olivia, Abigail, and a younger Nell. Olivia urges him to sit with them, but Nell tells him to go. Realizing staying means death, Luke refuses their mom. Older Nell suddenly appears and pulls him back to life. Luke revives and points behind them. The siblings finally see Nell together. She explains that the Red Room changes shape for each of them. For Theo, it was her dance studio. For her, it was her toy room. It's the reading room for their mom, the game room for Stephen, the family room for Shirley, and the treehouse for Luke. But it's also undeniable that it has been feeding on them. Nell tells Luke to live and comforts him that she'll be there. Scattered into pieces, not totally gone. One by one, her siblings apologize for failing her, and she forgives them all. Outside, Hugh confronts Olivia. She wants to keep the children forever, but Hugh convinces her that love means letting them go. When Hugh promises he'll stay with her, always, Olivia finally opens the door. They quickly take Luke out of the room, but Stephen momentarily stops when he sees something. Sending Shirley, Theo, and Luke to the hospital, Hugh and Stephen stay behind. Hugh finally reveals that after finding Olivia dead, the Dudleys appear. They learn of their daughter's death and realize that Abigail's ghost remains. So they convince Hugh to keep the house standing. In exchange, they promise to keep quiet about what really happened there. Stephen looks at Hugh's dead body, while the ghost of his father passes the house and the promise to Stephen. After reminding him they should take care of each other, Hugh enters the Red Room, joining Olivia and Nell. With the door closed, Stephen leaves the house and the ghosts behind. Life, of course, moves forward. Luke survives, Stephen reconciles with Lee, Shirley confesses about her affair, and Theo builds a life with Trish. Years later, the Dudleys reunite in death inside Hill House. Soon, the siblings gather to celebrate Luke's milestone. With that, the light of Hill House fades, and that's The Haunting of Hill House, a haunting story about grief, family, and the ghosts they carry with them. What did you think of this series? Did the bent neck lady twist devastate you as much as it did us? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear which episode hit you the hardest. If you enjoyed this recap, hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to push the notification icon. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious.